You are now listening to the Hick Talks Life podcast, a fatherhood journal. Journal entry number 1. Self-esteem is your responsibility. You are as great as you decide to be. With that said, people will believe about you whatever you appear to believe about yourself. Notice something. Both of these ideas put the emphasis on you, what you think, what you believe. When the inward man speaks, the outward man listens. Oftentimes, people who lack self-confidence don't understand the gravity and the weight of that keyword, self. They live their lives afraid of what people might say. It amazes me how much validation one might give to another's uninformed opinion of them. They often certify the thoughts and judgments of other random people about them as truth. Once they've qualified the unqualified, they exist many times frozen in fear, just trying to duck and dodge the judgment of others. I remember back in the 90s when all these people started getting tattoos that said, "Only God can judge me." I'm sure the tattoos were inspired by Tupac, but he wasn't the first person who said it. I noticed that generally the people who live the sketchiest lives got these tattoos, the rebels, and people who many times had lived lives that they themselves weren't proud of. Anyway, I just couldn't help but think, getting that tattoo seems to be a lot of work to convince yourself that you don't care about the opinions of others. Truly confident people wouldn't give a fuck enough about the thoughts of other people about them to even try to send them a message. Why a tattoo message for them? Fuck them, and he and she and they and whoever else. It was then I realized that people who take issue with the judgment of others often have problems with judging themselves. The mask of shame is often rebellion. We fear the opinions that seem to confirm our own insecurities. Truthful insults are the ones that hurt the most. The bad things we already thought about ourselves being said by someone else can totally obliterate our self-esteem. Some for a day or a lowly moment, but others for a lifetime. It's not when they think badly of you, but when you think badly of you that makes judgment, criticism, and insult so destructive. Self-esteem is the result of being in agreement with yourself. The key to self-esteem is doing things every day that you can be proud of. Living a life that you can be proud of until you're proud of yourself. So many people do nothing of substance with their days and then wonder why they don't feel better about themselves. You can't change the way you feel if you don't change the way you live. Change your day-to-day habits. You can't live life day-to-day with a TV show being the only thing you look forward to. We aren't just here to work, pay bills, watch TV, and die. We do have a purpose. Self-esteem is earned, but not in a traditional sense. It's earned by making sure that you are good enough for you and not anyone else. If you had a favorite TV show, you would argue, at least in your mind, with anyone who didn't like it. But for some reason or another, people don't always seem to give themselves that same amount of loyalty. To be honest, I've met way too many people who thought about killing themselves just because someone else didn't think they were worthy. When I ask them what do they think about them, they can't even answer the question. Or they just regurgitate whatever insults about themselves that they've heard from small-minded people around them. People whose goal is to shrink their self-esteem in the first place. People who are oftentimes not even worthy or credible enough to judge anyone else. People with mental health disorders and self-esteem issues themselves. It's like when sick people cough, but they don't cover their mouths. Pretty soon the people who spend the most time with them are sick too. Mental and emotional health sometimes work in that same way. But instead of an airborne pathogen, they cough out self-doubt, negative self-talk, hatred, abuse, uninformed opinions about you, judgment, condemnation, and other shit that lives inside of them that they want to project onto you. Shit they will infect you with if you stand too close. Self-hate is a disease, and it gets passed around like the flu. For some people, self-esteem can be found by removing the mentally sick and abusive people around them, by cutting the toxic people off. Recently, a lady who will remain anonymous wrote me about a guy, as thousands have. And in that email, although it didn't have much to do with her questions, she inadvertently revealed her insecurities about her body, her career, and her finances. And maybe in an attempt to avoid being judged by me for having mentioned those things, she said, "Oh, well, don't worry. I love and accept my body." Later in that email, she mentioned her weight again. Neither time was her weight even relevant to the story that she was telling me. She was asking me about a man, but she had a much larger issue on her hands. In so many words, my response was this. Listen, your story didn't have much at all to do with your weight, but you mentioned it twice in your email. That tells me that it's a source of insecurity for you and you think it holds you back. You know, it's one thing to say that you love and accept your body, but it's another thing to actually feel that love and pride. The only things in your life you should quote unquote accept are the things you cannot change. You have dominion over your body. You don't have to accept it because you control it. I think your bigger issue here isn't the guy from your past, but the fact that you've been accepting shit that you have the power to change for so long. You control your weight, you control your career, you control your finances. Life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. So take control, unquote. For what it's worth, I did address her questions as well, but I don't know if she'll appreciate my response. Maybe she will, maybe she won't, but I do know this. A lot of people who are broke want money, but they don't do what it takes. They don't save, they don't invest, they don't start businesses, they don't further their education if the job they want requires it. People out of shape want fit bodies, but they won't cut sugar, structure a meal plan, or work out. Whatever the challenge, people will have a list of reasons why this is their reality and why they can't overcome. They focus on why not instead of how can. They're often offended at the notion that they can do anything better than they already have. The words do better are often seen as fighting words for them. Know this, you get to keep every insecurity and every inadequacy that you fight for. Every flaw you defend will make a permanent home with you. People are so busy getting offended on behalf of their worst qualities that they haven't truly thought to change them. They've been so busy feeling that they don't take action to change the things that they fear will bring them judgment and the things they judge themselves on. Many find themselves in toxic environments, impoverished communities, shitty jobs they hate, in poor physical shape, and in terrible relationships. And the list goes on. Some people want better self-esteem, but day in and day out, they do things that they aren't proud of, things they wish they didn't. They don't stand up for themselves. They give in to their addictions. They are unproductive. They entertain toxic relationships. They themselves do and say toxic things. They burn bridges. They lie. They cheat. They quit. They fail to take control. They take shit from people. They let their health go. They go to jobs that they hate. They fuck people who don't love them. They use and they get used. They make excuses. They surrender in defeat. They live in fear of judgment. They don't live out loud because they're afraid to embarrass themselves. They don't try, they break promises, and they fill their day-to-day lives with regret. What's funny is, if any of these behaviors become a habit, a person's self-esteem will flee them like a deadbeat father. Self-esteem dies where these habits make a home. They cannot be a lifestyle. People be like, that's just how it is. I just gotta accept it. That's bullshit. You don't have to accept anything you have the power to change. You accept your height, you accept your background, you accept the attitude of others, but you don't have to accept your flaws. You can make improvements. You can change them. People often ask me how to increase your self-esteem. My answer is always, be a person that you can be proud of. Every day make decisions that your future self will thank you for. If tomorrow you could wake up as someone you admired, what would that look like? How would that version of you speak and act? What kind of impressions would you make? What kind of impact would you make? How would you present yourself? What kind of people would you have in your life? Who would be allowed back in? How will people treat you? You can be that person. Just put the work in. Your actions and non-actions greatly influence your pride and self-esteem. If you want better self-esteem, do shit about the shit that bothers you about you. You don't need easy, you just need possible. You don't have to feel strong to be strong. Just don't quit. And that's the end of my journal entry. Journal entry 1, August 1st, 2019. So I posed a question on Instagram about what people thought of the idea of self-esteem. And YVanX01 had a very interesting comment. She said, earn your own friendship by rewarding yourself with a smile. I thought that was deep. She and another person also mentioned positive affirmations. I found those to be very powerful. Positive self-talk is very powerful as well. At Goddess Rhonda also mentioned something very interesting on Instagram. She said, thank you for addressing this topic. How about the media influences on self-esteem, especially through advertising? You only have to sit through a couple of hours of TV before you're told as a woman your hair is too gray or you're too fat or your eyelashes are too short, etc. As a man, your house isn't big enough or your car isn't new enough, you're not rich enough or your tools are too old or your line sucks, etc. Those messages have huge effects on how we see ourselves based on the manipulations of advertisers. But even worse, it starts with children whose parents may not be able to afford those expensive video games or electronica toys and expensive sneakers and jeans. How that must make them feel, and also how they might look at their parents. Then, of course, their parents have the shame of not being able to afford those types of toys and clothing. And let's not forget the TV shows. LOL. Thank you, and you're awesome. I appreciate that, Goddess Rhonda. That's a beautiful comment, and it makes a lot of sense. Self-esteem issues are bred into people from the time they are children, from multiple sources: media, family, friends, foes. One of the keys is just to not compare yourself to other people. Be as great as you can be, and be all you are, but only worry about being you. I personally find that comparing yourself is probably the biggest mistake you can make as far as trying to manage your self-esteem, is seeing yourself through the lens of someone else, or how you assume someone else to be. We see the greatness in other people and miss the greatness in ourselves. Far too many people think I'm great and think they're nothing. Far too many people have seen and complimented my intelligence, who don't believe that they have any at all, who haven't seen their own greatness. Far too many women look at the bodies of other women. Far too many men look at the possessions of other men, or the list of women they've slept with. People often spectate the greatness of others when they have the full ability to participate in the greatness of themselves. Self-esteem is earned, and again, like I said in my journal entry, it's your responsibility. And at the end of the day, that's what I hope to teach my sons. I hope y'all got something from that. I'm Hick, and this is the Hick Talks Life Podcast, the Fatherhood Journal.